During week 228 of Brada's Branded Thoughts, an invalid record. Why Iowa's 6-2 record is quite deceiving. Plus, an exclusive interview, a bye-week interview with Iowa defensive tackle Aaron Graves. Aaron talks to us about how this team's going to bounce back from Saturday's heartbreaking, frustrating, and controversial loss. We'll talk to Aaron and about his career at Iowa coming up during week 228 of Brada's Branded Thoughts. This is from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Want to give a shout out to our sponsor first, Iowa Floor Covering, and their awesome products for any of your flooring needs. Give them a call, whether it's going to be tile or even tile showers or carpet. Give them a call. Tyler, Ryan, and the guys, they're Hawkeye fans. Take a look at their beautiful headquarters down in Bondurant, down in the heart of central Iowa. And of course, they've been supporting this show for well over a year. We ask that you support our sponsors, Iowa Floor Covering, for all of your flooring needs down in Bondurant. Visit them at iowafloorcovering.com. So, a 6-2 start to the season. Yep, Saturday was weird, really weird. And I don't know that I've come to terms with the invalid signal call that ended up being passed down. I haven't really recorded any footage, any segments, any video cuts for YouTube since the postgame show with Coach Patterson on Saturday. And I will admit that at the beginning of the postgame show, right after the game had ended, I was still very unclear on what had happened. In fact, I wasn't even clear what the signal was, what the call was, what Cooper DeJean actually did. And when you jump on a postgame show right after a game is over, when all of that is very fresh, it's just very difficult to kind of transcribe and to explain. So I hopefully everybody, by the end of the show on Saturday, we were able to kind of come to terms. I know I kind of finally came to a realization of what actually happened. I've had a few days now to kind of compartmentalize what the call was and implications of the call. And the reason why this podcast, week 228 of the podcast, is entitled An Invalid Record, it's because I don't know that I've ever been a part of an Iowa Hawkeye football season in which the record is almost deceptive in a couple of different ways, a couple of different extremes. A, you could argue that this team should be 7-1, right? They should be 7-1. The players feel, and I know from talking with Aaron Graves yesterday, and we're going to release that interview for everybody here in just a couple of minutes. Talking to Aaron, the players feel like the game on Saturday was stolen from them. Now, if you agree with that or not, that's your prerogative. I know I've made my feelings quite clear. And if anybody missed the show with Mark Rogers, I do at the Voice of College Football on Tuesdays at 4:30 p.m. Central Time over at Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football. Here is my overall takeaway from that call. Really, it's a two-part takeaway. A, I think it was a bad call because I don't think he was waving. The invalid signal call represents any waving motion that, even if it's below the shoulder, any waving motion. That's the first part. I don't believe that this or whatever he was doing, he's allowed to point. Of course, he's pointing with his right hand. I've never seen somebody be able to run without moving your other hand, especially if you have your right hand forward like this. Try running with your left arm down at your side, not kind of wobbling or moving. All right, this isn't Raquel Welch in Seinfeld. It's hard to do anything with your arms down at your sides, all right? So I have a problem with the idea that that was a quote-unquote wave. It's also clear that Cooper DeJean was not calling for a fair catch, and it was also clear he was not trying to deceive anybody. Why? Because if he was, he did a really bad job of it, given the fact that everybody, including every Minnesota player on that football field, every Iowa player on the football field, and the Minnesota sideline, they all clearly were going for Cooper DeJean. They believed it was a live ball. I think the officials botched this in a huge way. The other part about this call that does not sit well with me is if this motion that he was doing as he's pointing at the ball, which he's allowed to do, he was not giving a classic two-arm getaway signal like we saw in 2015 with Wisconsin and Northwestern. That is part of the rule. But if you call a getaway signal, technically that's an invalid signal and it should be called back, even though we saw on Saturday, North Carolina, Virginia, that occurred and the officials do not enforce it more often than not. So that's a problem. But this is not a classic getaway signal. One arm extended, other arm kind of turning or circling. What they called it a circular motion from Cooper. The other problem I have with this is, even if you want to argue that, well, by the letter of the law, that was the right call, why is it that none of the coaches, and it seems like none of the analysts except the rules expert, the rules analysts here, knew anything about the rule. Clearly, Cooper DeJean didn't know anything about the rule. Heck, the dean of college football, Kirk Ferentz, didn't know about the rule. That is a problem. Now, if you're a Minnesota fan, you're probably saying, well, Corey, it's Iowa's responsibility to know the rules. Okay, Kirk, I can tell you this. Kirk meets with officials before every season, during the season, before every game to go over things like this. And Kirk mentioned that after the game that they went over fair catch signaling and all that prior to the game on Saturday. And the fact that this is never brought up, if it's a part of the rule book, okay. I don't know if you went through all the Power 5 programs in the country. Does everybody have a rules guy on staff that literally is just feathering through the playbook and seeing what changes have been made? And I mean, this is not a real new rule, apparently, but it's a rule that's never enforced or almost never enforced. And it's certainly an obscure one. And of course, Kirk brought up the whole point that it seems like the replay was initiated because it was a scoring play. And it was to check to see if he was out of bounds. But because it was a scoring play, they could also go back and look to see if it was an invalid signal. So you're telling me that if Cooper DeJean had gone out the 1 yard line or at the 10-yard line or at the 20-yard line, and somebody sent me an email a couple of days ago and brought this to my attention, if he had gone down in field goal range, would they have been able to go back and review the invalid signal? Because it wouldn't have been a scoring play. And you may say, well, Corey, then it wouldn't have mattered as much. Well, yeah, it would have. Even if he had gotten 20 yards on the return, Drew Stevens is in field goal range. They kick a field goal win anyways. I have so many problems with how Saturday was handled. But the other part of why I'm calling this an invalid record, and they're 6-2. And if you really want to be petty and technical and a homer, you can say, well, they're actually 7-1. And I guess if you want to look at it that way, you can. It's not going to be what the record books state. In fact, the Big Ten has doubled down on that call from Saturday. Now, maybe if Iowa somehow becomes this elite program the rest of the year, they win out, they go 10-2, and then clobber Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. They're 11-2 Big Ten champions. Well, maybe the playoff committee looks at them and says, they're really 12-1 Big Ten champions. They're in the playoff. Now, we all know that's not going to happen, but we can talk about it. The other reason, though, why I think it's kind of an invalid record is I've never seen a team like this, with the exception maybe being 2021, a team like this winning so many games in spite of an historically bad offense. And we've been saying that now for 3 years. And I am not going to come on here and dog about Deacon Hill. People have heard where I stand on the quarterback position. And it almost makes me feel a little bit of sympathy for some of the criticism that people threw on Spencer Petras over the last 3 years. Was Spencer good at Iowa? No, he really was not. Has Deacon Hill been good in 3 starts? No, he has not. Was Alex Padilla ever good at Iowa? No, he didn't really get much of a chance, but no, he was not. Joe Labus started 1 game against Kentucky. He wasn't very good. They scored 21 points. 2 of those scores were from the defense. Iowa doesn't produce good quarterback play. Why is that? Are we really going to blame the individuals? And you say, well, they're not recruiting the right guys. Whose fault is that? We've been talking about this for how long? Either not developing the right guys, or not recruiting the right guys, or they're not evaluating the right guys in practice. And Kirk has doubled down on his stance in starting Deacon Hill. That's their main evaluation process, is looking at them in practice. So based on that, we're not going to see any changes. Deacon Hill can go out there and go 6-21 from the field and, basically have a 33% completion percentage. And as long as he's not turning the ball over, Kirk is okay with that. Now, he turned the ball over Saturday, turned the ball over 3 times. So I think there's reason to entertain looking at a guy like Joe Labus or Marco Lainez. I even talked about on Saturday, what is so wrong with giving these young guys a drive or a series or having a few plays ready for them? By the way, Marco Lainez is a freshman. He can play in up to 4 games and retain his red shirt. You know how many games are left on the regular season schedule? 4. 4 games. Why would you not utilize his athleticism? I don't think people realize how mobile he is, how athletic he is. I believe he's the quarterback of the future, but it's just insane. Iowa could easily, with this offense is, by the numbers, they're the worst offense in the Power 5. It's amazing that Iowa is 6-2 with this offense. They could easily be 4-4, 3-5, even 2-6. They're 6-2. So they are 6-2. That's their true record. But it's a deceiving 6-2 because I don't believe it's sustainable. Maybe they win out and go 10-2. That's possible. Maybe they win 2 of their last 4 games, maybe they win none of them. If the Iowa offense plays like it has been playing, the passing game is non-existent, and teams load the box like Minnesota did and make Iowa play left-handed, anybody could beat them. But they could also beat anybody because they've got an elite defensive unit and an elite special teams unit. But most of this you already know. I know it's me sounding off, folks, but I just kind of wanted to kind of fill you in on where I stand. I'm frustrated just like everybody else is. I was frustrated at 6-1, but you can't voice too much of that because the apologists will say, how could you complain about 6-1? Well, it's a forward type of thinking, at least in my opinion. It's not sustainable, but we're going to find that. We're probably not going to even see that transpire this year. But if things stay as they are now heading into next season, that will be realized. All right, folks, an official interview, an exclusive interview with Iowa defensive tackle Aaron Graves coming off a really disappointing loss to Minnesota. We'll talk to Aaron about his progress, his development, and goals moving forward with this football team. Iowa defensive tackle Aaron Graves coming up, but first, a word from our sponsor. Straight from the man cave, Kinnick Under the Kitchen. Authentic, original player artwork is being drawn up for Hawkeye fans everywhere. Locally made prints of stars wearing the black and gold from the past, present, and future. How about current Hawkeye superstars Cooper DeJean and Torrey Taylor? Legends of the past like Jack Campbell, Spencer Lee, and Tim Dwight. Plus future phenoms like Aaron Graves. There are so many options available. They make great gifts, and your purchase benefits the Hawkeye athletes wearing the black and gold. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook or at Under the Kitchen's new website. That's underthekitchen.square.site. Again, that's underthekitchen.square.site. Check out Under the Kitchen today and get your authentic, original Hawkeye print. Pleased to be joined now by Iowa defensive lineman Aaron Graves. And Aaron, it's been a while since you and I have talked. I think 2 years. I may have talked to you at a media day over the last couple of seasons, but as far as this podcast, this show is concerned, it's been a couple of years. The last time we talked, you hadn't gotten to Iowa officially yet, and you were working towards that 2-year degree, which you later achieved before getting to Iowa, which I know was widely publicized. And I want to talk to you about how your work from as far as education and your major is concerned. But first of all, thank you for being here. And we're coming off a difficult loss on Saturday against Minnesota. But your defensive line and your defense as a whole continues to get better. What's it like right now, 8 games into the season? What's the team's attitude coming off that tough way to end a game on Saturday?
It's definitely unfortunate the way that it was called in the game, but something that we talked about a lot is that we should never have let it get down to that one play. Shouldn't have got to the point to where the refs had that much power to make a game-winning, game-losing call. So that's kind of the perspective that we had on it. But, I mean, going forward, we kind of have the 24-hour rule. So we've moved on from that. We're focused on getting healthy during the bye week and then moving on to Northwestern.
Is there anybody coming off a game like this? This is your second year in college. Is there anybody in a situation like this that steps up vocally and kind of rallies the troops besides Coach Ferentz or Coach Parker? Is there anybody that does that in an emotional situation coming off what happened over the weekend?
There really hasn't been any groundbreaking team led player led meeting that we really have to make these major changes, because we know what Coach Ferentz has been talking to us the whole year, and we just need to get better every single day that we're on the practice field. And so I think if we do that, then we're going to be putting ourselves in good position. So I think it's just taking those things to heart that Coach Ferentz says.
Now that you've been in this program, Aaron, for a couple of seasons, is your perception of things the same as when you came in, or what's different about your experience at Iowa almost 2 years in than it was when I shouldn't say almost 2 years, basically 2 seasons in, than it was when you and I talked December, I think, of 2021?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the perspective of actually being in it compared to just what you've been told is a little different. But basically everything I was told by former players, coaches, was true when I got there, which was really refreshing. I mean, they were not feeding me lies or anything. They told me exactly how I was going to be. And yeah, definitely lived up to everything that I expected. So just glad I'm here.
Where are you at currently as far as weight is concerned?
295 now, and I came in about 275, so put on about 20 pounds.
And is that your ideal playing weight? I know when talking with Coach Patterson during our post-game shows, he's talked experiences with guys over the years where you kind of have to play with that ideal playing weight and figure out what your specific ideal weight is. Is that where you want to be?
Yeah, I think 295, 300, that's like my ideal playing weight for sure, because I think that's a position where I can like still develop my speed and still have the most amount of strength and weight to where I'm not getting displaced that much, but still able to rush. So yeah, I think this is about where I'll stay the rest of my career.
I know when you were committed to Iowa and obviously got to Iowa last year, the talk of the town really centered on, I think, two things. Well, first of all, really three things. I think you were really under recruited because you committed to Iowa so early in the process, but really your physical prowess. You did not look like a typical high school recruit. You certainly didn't look like a typical high school recruit out of a community like Gowrie or Dayton, Iowa. So those were two things. But the other thing was how serious you took your education and the work in the classroom. You had your 2-year degree, I believe, before you set foot on campus. Am I correct in saying that?
Yep.
So where's that at? Let's start with education. Where's what are you majoring in, and how's the classroom going?
Yeah, I'm majoring in exercise science right now. I plan on graduating this spring. So got the 2-year degree from Iowa Central. I was in high school, and then planning on getting my bachelor degree in exercise science after 2 years. Then after that, I really don't know. I might pursue a master's program, might go pre-med. I'm not exactly sure. I guess I'll have a little bit of time to make that decision when it comes. But yeah, I'm graduating 2 years, so I'll have a little time to figure out what I want to do.
I'm curious to ask you about the strength program because there have been changes over the past 3 seasons since Chris Doyle's departure. And of course, Raymond Brathwaite has taken over that program. Can you talk a little bit about his style now that you've been acclimated to the strength room at Iowa? Obviously, your physicality and your body is very important to you and has been since high school.
Yeah, I think the strength and conditioning staff that we have is the best in the country. I think that's something that really stuck out to me in the recruiting process, and something that I knew going in that I was going to get well developed. And that's something that we really stress. We don't just have plug-in players. Like, we don't get a bunch of 4- and 5-star guys. We actually take a lot of pride in developing in the weight room, on the field. And so far everything's lived up to the hype. Yeah, the way that they go about their work in the weight room. I mean, these strength coaches are waking up at like 3:30, 4 to get there and get everything set up for us so that we can have the best workout possible. And yeah, they take their jobs really seriously. And I mean, you see in the weight room, you just have guys putting up ridiculous numbers. And so I think they're the best.
Who's the biggest weight room freak, at least with your position group? And you can say yourself if it's you.
He's not. No, he's not. Well, he's not in my position group, but Logan Jones is. Yeah, he's a freak in the weight room. He set our squat and hang clean record, and he has all the agility records too. I think his squat max is at like 690 or something ridiculous like that. His hang clean's at like 450 or some 460, something like that. So, yeah, he puts up some pretty ridiculous numbers.
And I'm assuming Jennings Dunker is pretty special as well in the weight room.
Yeah, he puts up some crazy numbers too. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the young guys. We haven't, it's obviously a very deep defensive line group, Aaron. And, we hope to hear good news on Noah Shannon very soon. He ought to be playing alongside you right now. Of course, that's another travesty that's been suffered by the Iowa program. But talk a little bit about the young guys. Who's not playing yet, but who's close?
Yeah, I think one guy's Jeremiah Pittman. I mean, he's been getting in the rotation, but I think he's one guy that's gonna really show up in the next couple of years. I think Max Llewellyn's another big one. He's been coming in on third downs a lot, and he's been doing a great job. And I mean, that kid can rush the passer like anybody can. So I think those are two guys that are really gonna show up. So yeah.
Curious what you think about Ontario Thompson. Of course, he just got there, but his reputation from Western, he's a kid who was, a small town kid like yourself in a way from Dubuque. What's he shown in practice, and do you see any similarities in your own game to Ontario's?
Yeah, Ontario is just a freak athlete. I mean, he is a freak of nature. He came in, it was just like being top 3 in all the speed and agility reps. I mean, he came in, squatted like 495 like it was an empty bar. And yeah, he's a freak. I mean, once he develops like in terms of the playbook and all that, he's gonna be special.
I made the comment, I remember back in when he committed, that given his size and, like you said, just his freakish athleticism, I envision you two lining up one alongside one another. And of course, we knew Noah was heading into his final year here. We think about other upperclassmen like Y.A. Black. What could that be like? You and Ontario Thompson potentially in the future. Of course, guys like Jeremiah Pittman are going to be in the mix as well. But you two alongside each other, I would think would be nightmares up the middle for any opposing quarterback.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited for the future and what that has in store. Obviously I'm focused on now. I haven't really put too much thought into that, but I'm excited for what's to come for sure. With Ontario, Pitt, myself, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun these next 2-3 years.
One question I always ask recruits, Aaron, and I remember I asked you this 2 years ago, who are you closest to? And at that time, I remember you said, well, Cale Crow's in my class. He's Central Iowa kid. I know you guys used to work out together up here in Ames. I'm assuming maybe you're still close to Cale, but who else have you really bonded with over the last year?
Yeah, my roommates are Will, Luke, call him Chubbs, Landon Van Kickericks. Yeah, I don't know where he got that from. I think it was because he's a chubby baby, but Chubbs and Andrew Krause. So those are my roommates. Those are probably my closest friends. And then like Logan Lee, I would say, and Joe Evans. Those are some of my closest friends in the D-line room, for sure. I love hanging out with those guys, traveling, just in the meeting room, always joking around with them. So yeah, those are guys I've gotten really close with.
We kept hearing about this defensive line meeting that happened a few weeks back. Can you talk a little bit about that? What can you share about how that kind of made this unit better?
Yeah, I think Purdue was our 5th game. So like the first 4 games of the season, we just had not been having the productivity that we collectively want as a group. And then we kind of just noticed that we were coming out and we just weren't having fun as a group. Like we were so worried about making mistakes and so stressed about doing our assignment instead of just going out and having fun as a group and enjoying ourselves and enjoying playing with each other, that we were so stressed we were playing with sticks up our butts. And so we had this little player-led D-line meeting. Joe led it and Logan led it, and we basically said, listen, we just need to go out and have as much energy and fun as we possibly can. Like if we make mistakes, it's fine, so be it. But we are going to go out and we're going to have fun. We're going to have as much energy. I don't care if it's fake. I don't care if it's real. We're going to have as much energy as we possibly can. And I think we ended up having like 6 sacks that game. So it clearly really helped by not worrying so much about messing up. We actually played a lot better, ironically. So that's kind of been our mentality since then. And I think the productivity has definitely increased a lot since then as well.
Just reverting just for a second back to Saturday, Aaron, you used the term before we started recording roller coaster to kind of describe emotions with that play from Cooper Saturday. But really the last 2 weeks have been a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, it's really hard to get a win in Madison. I don't care who you are, but traditionally that's a rivalry game that's hard to win up there. If you're Iowa, you guys go up there and take care of business by 2 scores. Defense controls the game. You made a huge play in that game. I believe it was on a sack and a quarterback and a forced fumble. What have the last 2 weeks been like? And have these been has it been the biggest roller coaster ride since you've gotten here?
Yeah, I would say it has for sure. Those are 2 big wins, especially that Wisconsin game. Then that was electric. That was really fun. I heard is how hard it is to win at Madison. I mean, obviously I'd never played there before, but I heard about it, and to get a win there and to hold them to six points was, I think, really special. And then, yeah, to come to Minnesota to lose the way that we did. I mean, you talk about really high highs and low lows. Definitely a roller coaster.
I know you're not a punt return guy, but I had a conversation with somebody on a talk show today. And I made the comment that I've talked to people with different programs. I've talked to people within Iowa State. I've talked to people well connected to Iowa. We heard Kirk Ferentz after the game on Saturday. I'm just curious from your perspective, have you ever heard of the invalid signal rule?
No, I've never heard of that. And like from my understanding, I mean, I could be wrong, but I didn't think that was a reviewable call. I mean, when they called a review, I thought, okay, they're going to see if he stepped out of bounds. And then they came out and said he waved a fair catch signal. And I was like, I didn't even think he could do that. I mean, I didn't think they could even review that. So that was kind of my perspective. Yeah, I mean, in that moment, you're feeling, man, we just got cheated out of a game. This sucks, but it is what it is. And I mean, when it comes down to it, we just shouldn't have been in that position to begin with. Like I said, we should have done more earlier in the game to not be in that position to where the rest had all the power.
It's a great answer. And I'm curious too, it was brought up today, educating. How do the coaches get educated on rules, and how do they instill that in their players? Again, I'm sure it's different when you go across the position groups, but that's not a rule you were aware of. It doesn't sound like it's even a rule your head coach was aware of. Is there a process where when new rules are implemented that you're aware of, that you guys are fed from coaches? Are they fed down during meetings? Do you know how that's done?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple rules. I couldn't even tell you the exact examples, but I know like in camp, there's been a couple rules that just came out like after 2022, and they let us know about it, but they were like really small, very situational rules and stuff like that. But yeah, other than that, there hasn't been a whole lot of like rule informing meetings or anything like that.
And the reason I ask that question is I personally, and we can move on from this completely, but I have two big problems with what happened Saturday. A is I don't agree that what Cooper did was a wave in any way, whether it was above the shoulder,
I agree.
I don't believe he was waving. It was not a getaway signal. Two arms is a getaway signal. So I think the rule is very arbitrary when you say a wave that's below the shoulder. How do you deem this a wave? Second thing is, if it is a rule and that was the rule and it was violated, who does the responsibility fall back on to educate the coaches and then for them to educate the players? If the dean of college football, Kirk Ferentz, is not really aware of the rule, and the officials meet with Coach Ferentz before games, before seasons, and those rules aren't fired down the line, do we expect Kirk to have somebody on staff that's just monitoring the rule, knowing every little detail of the rule book? You would think those things would be communicated. But again, those are my big issues with the situation. And I know there's a lot of opinions on it, but I'm curious now. You guys head into a bye week. I know the schedule is different this week. It's been kind of a truncated practice schedule a little bit, but you'll be heading to Wrigley Field for a battle against Northwestern in a week and a half. Is this a good time for a week off, do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think this is a perfect time to kind of regroup and get our minds in the right place and get our bodies healthy. Man, God knows that we have a lot of guys that are banged up and injured right now. I mean, Wyatt dislocated his shoulder against Wisconsin, and he still played against Minnesota. So then that's just one example. I mean, just getting guys back healthy and getting our minds in the right position before we get into the rest of the Big Ten West opponents is something I think is really important. And so, yeah, I think this is pretty good timing.
I know there's belief with this team that you guys can win out. The goal at the beginning of the season was to win every game, but you got to take one game at a time. And of course, that starts with Northwestern. How much do you guys talk? It doesn't seem like it's a focal point with Coach Ferentz, but how much do you guys talk as a group about winning a Big Ten title?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about before the season even started, before we even started summer training, all the way back in the winter after last year, that's something that's been a team goal of ours, is to win a Big Ten championship, and it still is. And so, obviously, once you get in, you have to take it 1 week at a time. You can't be thinking of your next opponent. You kind of just got to take it one day at a time, really. Be where your feet are, but that's definitely a team goal that we have, and something that we're still striving for. So that hasn't changed.
What are the goals for you, Aaron? Where do you look to improve over the rest of this season, heading into the off season? How can you take the next step?
Yeah, I think just fitting into my role as best as I can. Obviously, I'm not a starter right now. I'm getting in the rotation a lot, but just fitting into the role that they need me to be the best. In terms of like specifics, off-season training will take care of that. And when that time comes, then we can really talk to Coach Bell and Coach Ray and say, okay, this is what we really, really need to work on. As for now, just get better every day in practice. Take every drill with as much intent as I possibly can, and just try and get better.
What are your NFL aspirations? I'm sure you want to play in the league, but is that something that you even think about after year 3? I mean, I know that's looking ahead, but did you even give that thought? I mean, you're so far ahead with your education. I'm just curious as to where your mind's at as far as your professional career.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, every college football player wants to play in the NFL. So, yeah, it's definitely something that I would love to do. I'm not naive to the fact that it's a very hard league to get into, let alone stay in. So, obviously, I have a pretty solid background. Backup plan with my degree and possibly getting a master's, but doesn't mean I'm going to work any less to achieve that goal of mine to play in the NFL. So I'm going to work my butt off to do that, but I'm also going to work my butt off to get my degree and possibly get a master's or go pre-med or have a good backup plan as well.
I want to talk a little bit about RTI Threads because they're the reason you're here talking to me this evening. You've partnered with them for your apparel line, your merch line. And I'm curious, they really have connected in Marty Millard and the guys over there at RTI Threads. They've really connected with the small town Iowa athletes. And I think about guys, not just yourself, but Cooper DeJean. And certainly go down the list, Aiden Hall, Zach Lutmer, Carson Shire. Do you small town guys kind of connect? I mean, there's a number of you guys on this roster, but is there kind of a camaraderie with all of you?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that we can all relate to. Graduating with like 60, 70, 80 kids in your class. You hear a lot of guys on the team say they come from a small town. They went to a small school and they graduated with like 400 kids. And you're like, no, you went to a big town for Iowa. So I think that's definitely something that you can identify with, and especially as a freshman like Lutmer and Aiden. Those guys come in. Lutmer's actually my locker buddy, so we kind of connect in that way. He's from Northwest Iowa, and I have a lot of family up there. So I think it's kind of a good transition for the freshmen too, to know that a lot of guys on the team understand kind of where you're coming from, the home life kind of deal, the school size, like that, all that kind of thing. Just finding that comfortability when you get on campus.
Aaron, I remember you 2 years ago telling me that you're not much of a video game guy. Small town, Gowrie, Dayton. You grew up in Dayton, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So Dayton, what's there to do? You got a rodeo there every year. I know it's a big deal. I don't want to downplay the Dayton rodeo, but I'm just curious. Here we go. It's late October. When you have free time, and right now you're locked into football, what are you doing? You're not a big social media guy. You're not a video game guy. What does Aaron Gray spend his time? You can't frolf. I know you said frisbee golf was a big thing back up there, but what are you doing in Iowa City? It's cold.
I think just hang out with my roommates. I hang out with them a lot, watch movies with them, hang out with my girlfriend. There's not a whole lot to do right now. Really swamped with like school and football, obviously, and other like church obligations, that kind of thing. But in my free time and the limited time I have, I like to just hang out with my roommates, just chill with them. Watch a movie or something with my girlfriend.
You got a girlfriend, so women keep you busy.
Well, man.
Yeah, woman. What you good?
Yeah.
A in there, not the E. Make that very clear. But a woman will keep you busy, so that's wise advice. All right, so talk a little bit more about RTI Threads, Aaron. Why RTI Threads? We talked about the small town connection and kind of your connection with Marty, but your apparel line just dropped here a few days ago, so definitely encourage people to go over to rtithreads.com and click on the NIL roster, and they'll find everybody's lineup, including yourself. But why RTI Threads?
Yeah, I think from the second Marty reached out to me, they've been nothing but great communicating, being really personal, being, compliant with my schedule. They know that I'm really busy right now, and so they try to communicate with me as little as possible. Even they always think that they're like hassling me, even though they're trying to make me money and sell my apparel out to people, and so they're doing me a favor. But I think they're just really great people, and they're doing a really great job. Especially since before, like last year, the only thing that you could buy that was Aaron Graves was a jersey, and those run up to like $120, anywhere from like $90 to $120. So if you don't want to spend that much money, you didn't really have any other options. So I think what's great about this new apparel line is, first I got a new logo, so I'm a huge fan of it. It's got the little shovel for the little grave digger sign that Tori likes to call me. And I think it's really, really affordable stuff. I mean, you got kids' clothes that's $25-$30 and all the way to, long sleeve sweatshirts that are $50. And you can get, I think, a wide range of different clothing styles and definitely affordable price ranges.
So it's Tori. Tori's not the one who came up with Gravedigger.
No.
Where did that originate?
Well, I mean, I had a few people call me in high school. Our announcer started calling me it in football games when we got announced before the game. And so it kind of started there. But as far as people at Iowa calling me it, Jack Campbell was actually like the first one to start really calling me it. And then Coach Wallace did. And from there, kind of caught on. Tori just loves to call me it now. He thinks it's the greatest nickname ever. So he gets a real kick out of it.
Well, between Jack Campbell and Torrey Taylor, you got a couple of the all-time greats at Iowa. So it's good company to be coining you with a nickname, Aaron. So again, check out Aaron Graves, the Grave Digger apparel line, the AG apparel line over at rtithreads.com. Click on NIL athletes at the top of the screen, or if you're on your mobile phone, click the drop-down menu on your left, and you'll find the lineup. Aaron, best of wishes. I know you guys will refocus. I'm sure you already are refocused, and you'll get locked and loaded. And excited to see you. I don't know what the baseball atmosphere is going to be like, the Wrigley Field game. I've never been a part of that myself. I'm guessing you've never played in a baseball stadium. So you'll be ready for Northwestern. What do you guys got to do to get things done against the Wildcats in a week and a half?
Yeah, I think the main thing now is to rest up as well as we can this week, get our minds refocused. Flush everything that happened against Minnesota, move on from it, and then prepare like we know we need to and have to get wins. So
Iowa defensive lineman Aaron Graves leading one of the best defenses in the country, and for one of the best coaches in the country in Phil Parker, and of course head coach Kirk Ferentz. Aaron, appreciate you taking the time, and best wishes against Northwestern, and best wishes on the new apparel line over at RTI Threads.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Always enjoy talking with Aaron Graves. Humble young kid from small town Iowa, very much like Cooper DeJean. In fact, as we mentioned during that interview, RTI Threads partnering with Cooper and with Aaron and with Zach Lutmer, Aiden Hall, Carson Shire, all these kids. It's a great company, rtithreads.com. Check out their NIL roster. And we appreciate Aaron Graves joining the show. And that is the mindset. Aaron brought that up. The mindset is you got to move on. Iowa has flushed this. I think it's a good time for a bye week because I think could easily Saturday's loss and that play and everything that happened there, the controversy could easily linger into a trip to Wrigley. Hopefully the week off pays big dividends. Stay tuned here to the channel, folks, and to the podcast from the Hawkeye of the Storm for more Hawkeye coverage as we approach men's and women's basketball season, and we continue with the 2023 football season. We'll talk to you soon.